Hello, everyone, and happy 60th anniversary to James Bond. What a hell of an achievement that is! 60 wonderful years since Dr. No, and the longevity, and to have so many passionate and devoted fans that continue this to this day to be invested, as strongly as ever in the franchise, and for there to be so much goodwill and continued excitement and enthusiasm. There's really nothing like it. And of course, obviously, from a young age, thanks to my dad, I was introduced to Bond, and obviously was wonderful, wonderful. We watched through all of them. Um, was a wonderful experience, and obviously that's. I have to admit, as I got into secondary school, I did have a little bit where it waned. That whole, I suppose you might say, too cool for school period. But thankfully, I'm back with a vengeance. I'm totally re-engaged, and a lot of that's thanks to the online community. People like David Zaritsky and John Williams and Calvin Dyson. These guys are just they do wonderful things for the community. They are something of the glue that holds it all together, and it's always nice when you see people engaged with and discussing and passionate about something. The passion's there, and the excitement's there, and the enthusiasm. And I really feel that David Zaritsky, Calvin Dyson, John Williams, people like that, they are wonderful, wonderful representatives and, I suppose, ambassadors for the Bond community and the Bond fan base. But yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, well, I suppose Doctor No specifically, as well as the franchise as a whole, because obviously on the build up to No Time to Die being released I went back and watched again through all of the Bond films. And obviously, starting with Doctor No, and I gotta tell you, I got a whole new appreciation for that film. Again, never ever felt that it was a bad movie, but I always felt that it couldn't be compared to what followed, because obviously, but when they made that one, they didn't know. There's no way they could have known, so it's not. But I honestly, Doctor No is a wonderful movie, and when it comes to the films of Sean Connery, I mean, I really like Never Say Never Again. I am that guy. But if we're to talk about the quote unquote official ones, I think Doctor No is my favourite Sean Connery one. I really, really do. And it's wonderful, you know, it's wonderful in its simplicity. Obviously it's something that David Zaritsky himself has talked about, going back to basics. It seems when they reboot and restart with another Bond, with a new Bond actor, they do take it back to basics, and there is a lot to be said for the stripped back approach. But what's so wonderful about Doctor No for me is seeing Bond as a detective. There's so many times throughout this film where you just see Bond go into a place and he's investigating, and he's being a detective, and he's functioning like one. And we have that point later on in the film where Bond and Doctor No sit down at the dinner table together, and Doctor No flat out refers to him as a policeman. Because obviously we've seen Bond presented in that way throughout. Obviously, when Doctor No refers to him as a policeman, it's very obviously demeaning. But it's nice to see, Bond using his detective skills. It's really, really good. And just this, it is a time capsule, most certainly, of that early 60s period, and it's very, very wonderful. It feels very, it, for lack of a better term, it feels special. It really, really does. And also, seeing like the spy work, and obviously the little things, where he leaves the hair on the wardrobe, and he also, in his hotel room, when he goes to open the bottle, and he thinks twice about it, and he takes the other one out the drawer and uses that one instead in case the one that's out's been spiked with anything. But little cool moments, and obviously the powder on the briefcase. These things, they are the obviously very small things, but they bring so much to the party. And again, just the whole opening to this as well. When we're introduced to Bond again, it's so iconic in the casino, and everything just feels very opulent. And tapping into that escapist fantasy. But also, when he goes from the casino, he's called to the office, and he goes to see Em in the early hours of the morning, and you can feel the weight and the gravity, like, oh, okay, this is something serious. He's being called in out of hours. And obviously, it even that little bit as well. It's total snapshot of the '60s, but you can see the control room and the guy with the '60s hair and the '60s glasses. It's great. But it's so wonderful, and again, right from the off, the Bond. Again, tropes, but these, the things that we have great affection for. Right off the bat, the interplay between Bond and Moneypenny, phenomenal. And then obviously going in to see Em, and obviously Bernard Lee has such a wonderful presence. It's all very, very good. And even, when he gets the Walther and he has to hand the Bretter over, it's so good. And then, but I just think there is really something special about that film, Doctor No. And again, it is very simplistic, but there's so many wonderful things. But right from the off, obviously the escapist fantasy, like, and the women in this as well. Obviously, you've got, obviously Ursula Andress, Honey Rider, but the other Bond girls in this, Miss Taro, and then Sylvia Trench. Obviously the first Bond girl we ever meet on screen, Sylvia Trench. And obviously the back and forth between the two of them at the casino is so wonderful. And then obviously later on when he goes back to his apartment, she's there waiting for him, and again tapping into that fantasy thing, man. I mean, who wouldn't love that? And then obviously she's got one of his shirts on, and she's still got high heels on, of course, but it's very, very sexy stuff, and it's great. And it just, again, and then obviously going off to Jamaica, you know again for 90, audiences in 62, never been to these places, but we're going with Bond, and it's fantastic. Honestly, it does so much in this movie. And then obviously you talk about ultimate fantasies. You wake up on a beach and you see Ursula Andress coming out the water in that bikini. Again, it's just obviously the word iconic's thrown around a lot, but genuinely in the case of Doctor No, it really is. And just even, again, I'm jumping all over the place, but the opening title sequence, the polka dots, it's so cool. And obviously the influence that that's had on filmmakers throughout the years, obviously Bond as a whole, but obviously it was really cool in X-Men First Class when Matthew Vaughn, in the credits for X-Men First Class, he homages the polka dots. And that film itself, X-Men First Class, is an homage to the early Connery Bond films. But it just, it stood the test of time, and it speaks for itself. You can't deny. And of course, the 60th anniversary steelbook for Doctor No has just been released. I'm going to get it in the next couple of days. Looks absolutely wonderful. It seems as though there's a great deal of care and effort that's been put into this, so it'll be a wonderful collector's piece to commemorate the 60 years. And obviously we've had other things released. Obviously we had that wonderful Plaque limited edition casino plaque set that I've been fortunate enough to get my hands on. David Zaritsky did a wonderful video where he showcases the set. It's a beautiful set and wonderful commemorative piece. But yeah, pairing that with the Steelbook again, and obviously from the sartorial point of view, obviously NPL's going to be releasing some new stuff for the 60th anniversary. Obviously, Anthony Sinclair is releasing things throughout the year to celebrate 60 years of Bond. It's very very exciting time, and it's just so much goodwill, so much positivity. It's the wonderful thing about the Bond community. But yeah, Doctor No, an absolutely wonderful film. Everything feels very. It feels like a special. It feels like an event. It does. It really does. And obviously, you have so much of the globe trotting and the escapism and the cool spy stuff going on. And obviously, the wonderful interplay where, we see Bond sit down at the dinner table and have the back and forth with the big bad. Very, very cool. So, and again, obviously, there's so many other cool moments. Connery is great in this, and obviously 31 going on 32, obviously perfect age, perfect look. He is the perfect 60s leading man, and he's the way he plays it in this film. And obviously that scene where he kills Professor Dent, you've had your six, and just boom, does him there. And then again, obviously, very, very cold, showing him as the cold, calculated assassin, very deliberate in his movements, very deliberate in his actions. But again, Connery, great. Obviously, the reason the character works, because if Connery didn't work as that character, we don't have 60 years of Bond, so it all goes back to Connery. And he was so, so wonderful in the film, and he continued to be. Especially, again, I really feel those original three that he did, Doctor No, From Russia With Love, Goldfinger, you've got a perfect trilogy right there, And again, coming out in such rapid succession, 62, 63, 64, the way they were able to maintain the quality, you could see the care and the effort and the attention to detail that was being put in by everyone involved. But yeah, again, that's Doctor No, a very, very wonderful, wonderful film that I have a whole new appreciation for. And it deserves to, if you haven't seen it in a while, obviously no better time than the 60th anniversary, go back and revisit it. But again, just taking a brief overview of the franchise since then, because the way it's gone from strength to strength, Obviously on Her Majesty's Secret Service, George Lazenby, I have a whole new appreciation for. For the longest time, it's a film that I really didn't give a chance to and I didn't care for, but it's something special on Her Majesty's. And obviously for Roger I have a great love for. My favourite film of his in the franchise is Octopussy. You've talked about a film that's tailor made for an actor. Roger is so comfortable in that movie. Everything's tailor made for him. The chemistry he has with Maud Adams, and the back and forth, the chemistry that he has with Lewis Jordan as Kamal Khan, is very, very, very good. And again, it has some of his best action as well in this one. The yo-yo blade fight sequence. It's great stuff. Yeah, Octopussy, wonderful, wonderful film. It's and again, just Roger makes it, and then obviously with Tim Dalton, obviously Living Daylights is a great debut. Absolutely, it is. But for me, man, License to Kill, I love that. That's my number one. License to Kill is my number one Bond film, and Octopussy is a close second. It's very close between those two, License to Kill and Octopussy. But yeah, two wonderful, wonderful films again, both directed by John Glenn. And again, it's just, what the great thing about Octopussy is it feels very traditional, very traditionally Bond. and it feels like David Zaritsky makes a comparison. It's like that big gooey pizza that you love, and just it's got all of the Bond tropes that you come to expect and come to know and love. So you've got something very traditional with Octopussy, but with License to Kill, what's interesting is they changed it up, obviously. But for me, it was changed up in the right way, where it felt like something different and something new. And of course, it was at the time the idea of Bond going rogue. It was a new concept. But obviously, Timothy Dalton, while he brought that harder edge to it, he still felt like Bond, and he had the suaveness and the very refined, but also, he couldn't be, you buy him as the cold assassin who was very calculated and very deliberate. And the story in it with him taking matters into his own hands, and I'll always remember it's the American poster, isn't it, where it's just him on the cover. He's got the dress shirt, the top of it undone, and he's got the gun, and we have that wonderful, wonderful tagline, his bad side is a dangerous place to be. Great, great film, and obviously Robert Davi, what a wonderful, wonderful villain as Sanchez, scary villain. Very, very. Obviously, we've been so used to seeing these larger than life villains in the Bond franchise, but this is a guy who feels very real and very scary. So you feel the threat to Bond from this guy. And just the set pieces, some great stunt work. Obviously, the opening title or the pre-title sequence with the airplane, and where we go fishing for the for Sanchez's plane, and we hook it up to the. It's very, very good. The aerial stuff, very, very good. And then obviously the water stuff later on, when we actually get to see Bond water ski with no skis. It's very impressive. And obviously the tanker chases at the end, and obviously that was a very, very hellish set piece to film. But they you talk about an achievement, getting that filmed and completed like they did. Yeah, for a long time, overcoming obstacle after obstacle and everything going wrong, but hey, perseverance. And just from a lifestyle and escapism perspective, obviously, some people criticise it for being like looking like a TV movie, feeling like a TV movie, like a Miami Vice episode. I actually like it. I really, really do, and I like the Florida Keys setting. It was very, very cool, very nice, and again, very Americanized, which I liked. Again, it's all subjective, but having those are almost Lethal Weapon vibes, Die Hard vibes. Obviously, there's 5 minutes where it turns into Roadhouse. I'm a fan of all that stuff, so it worked for me in spades. It did. But obviously sartorially, because obviously we had such wonderful outfits and wonderful wardrobes from Connery and Lazenby and Moore. Obviously, Tim Dalton, I really, really like the outfit when he's at Hemingway House, the license revoked sequence, with the white linen shirt and the linen jacket. It's again so sartorially, you can still find stuff. And again, lifestyle escapism stuff, for me, my favourite location in any Bond movie, Sanchez Villa, the Villa Arabesque in Acapulco Bay. Absolutely amazing. Really, really amazing. It's so it ticks all the boxes for me, it does. It really does. And we talk about the music throughout, obviously, John Barry being our mainstay for so many years, but then obviously we're licensed to kill, having Michael Kamen come in and do one. He did a phenomenal job, and again, obviously the guy who did the music for Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, Roadhouse, now he comes to do music for Bond, and he does a great job. But yeah, it's and then obviously we come to Pierce, obviously GoldenEye. No one's gonna really dispute that GoldenEye is the best Pierce Brosnan movie and one of the best Bond films, period. It is my number 3. License to Kill 1, Octopussy 2, GoldenEye's in the number 3 spot, man. It absolutely is. And yeah, what a return to form. Obviously it had been 6 years since License to Kill. We're restarting, getting Pierce Brosnan in. You know, fresh new take, and what a film. And obviously, again, a novel concept, the idea of Bond going up against another agent, you know, who's gone rogue. You know, obviously, we've seen Bond go rogue in License to Kill, but with the best of intentions and doing the right thing. Whereas, obviously, we see in GoldenEye the other side of the coin, where Bond goes up against, you know, an agent who's gone rogue and switched sides for his own personal gain. You know, it's almost to make the comparison to Dirty Harry and Magnum Force. You know, in Dirty Harry, we see Harry Callahan take matters into his own hands to deal with the Scorpio killer when he realizes the system ain't gonna cut it. But then in Magnum Force, we see the other side of it, where, you know, police officers operate outside of the system, you know, and take things the wrong way and go too far, and then Harry has to step in to deal with them. It's, you know, it doesn't fit 100%, but I think there's a similarity there that can be, or comparison that can be made. But it's a nice little added dynamic, you know. Obviously, we've seen Bond go rogue, but obviously for the best of intentions. Now, obviously, we've seen the other side where 006, this is a guy who's just a traitor, you know. But a golden again and again, following up Sanchez, you know, Sean Bean, what a great Bond villain he is, and again, someone who is a formidable foe to for Bond to go up against, and the fight that Pierce Brosnan and Sean Bean have at the end of GoldenEye, I think to this day, is still the best fight sequence in the entire Bond franchise. It's fantastically done. And again, great job by Martin Campbell, you know, obviously coming in, you know, breathing new life into the Bond franchise. Obviously, the first of two times he's done it. But yeah, I love GoldenEye so much. And then obviously we round out with Daniel Craig, and obviously I'll hold my hands up and say I've been very, very negative on Daniel Craig right from the get go. You know, he's never been my Bond, and obviously I have been on the hate train. There's no other way to say it, and almost, I suppose as well, you could say to an unreasonable extent, because obviously playing Bond at this point, it's almost an impossible task. Like, what the hell are you going to do with it? And obviously Daniel Craig, at least in the early films, obviously, you know, he can only do what's on the page. Obviously, the idea, you know, obviously he's had more creative input as the films have gone on, certainly. But, you know, when you first go in there, it's all about paying your dues, and, you know, before you can start making suggestions and having input, you know, you've got to play the game. And I'll still to this day, I don't mind admitting, for me, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, they're films that don't work for me. I appreciate, certainly in respect of Casino Royale, that I'm in the minority. But for me, they don't jive with me. They again always felt more like Bourne films than Bond films. And, you know, that fair enough, if that was what they wanted, that's fair enough. But they're just not for me. So I never really go back to Casino Royale or Quantum of Solace. Skyfall I really like, and obviously we start getting back to the Bond, the traditional Bond stuff. Start to, and then obviously that continues more in Spectre. Obviously, I think, and other people have said this. I think, including David Zaritsky and the people that obviously he's had these discussions with, that Spectre really feels like the first time we see Daniel Craig just in full on Bond mode. You know, this is like, Spectre's probably the closest he ever comes to Pierce Brosnan, Roger Moore, Sean Connery, as being that traditional character. And that was, I never saw Skyfall at the cinema because I was so turned off after Quantum of Solace. I went to see Spectre and I really, really dug it. Again, it's schlocky. It's schlocky. No one's going to put it in the top 10 of Bond films. But it's that gooey pizza. And obviously getting the fight that Daniel Craig has on the train with Batista, you talk about a great hard-hitting fight. And, you know, and obviously almost like a send up to the fight that Sean Connery and Robert Shaw having from Russia with Love train fight, and obviously Roger Moore and Richard Keel in Spy Who Loved Me. I'll never forget that moment at the beginning of the fight in Spy Who Loved Me, you know, when Roger Moore comes in and sees Jaws attacking Triple X. You know, nothing graceful, nothing refined. He just grabs that champagne bottle and breaks it over the back of his head. It's just a little moment that, you know, it's so easy to just gloss over, but I really appreciated. But yeah, again, great action. Again, it's one thing you can't deny about Daniel Craig. You know, he tried very hard. You know, even if he wasn't always enthusiastic about what he was doing, he certainly tried, and the physicality he brought to it, you can't deny. So, really phenomenal fight scene between him and Batista, and oh, Monica Bellucci. I'm so glad she finally was in a Bond movie. And again, very small role that really doesn't impact on the overall plot, but it was so lovely to have Monica Bellucci in there. Um, you know, obviously, favourite Bond girls, obviously, for me, you know, Famke Jensen and Sophie Massot and Barbara Carrera from Never Say Never Again. But again, I gotta put, you know, it's Monica Bellucci. You've got to mention Monica Bellucci. Um, but yeah, Spectre was for me was a lot of fun. And then we come to No Time to Die, which is very interesting. And again, obviously, very, you know, a lot of people don't like it. Fair enough, I totally understand. Very divisive, absolutely. I think genuinely No Time to Die is my favourite Daniel Craig film. Really, because I just it just works. It just works. It absolutely for me it does. And again, yes, it's, you know, you can talk about Rami Malek's Safin, you know, and if the plan, you know, the if the plot in his plan makes a lot of sense, you can debate that. And obviously at the end, you know, with the you know, when Bond gets infected, like is there a way that we could have, you know, with it being nanotech, you know, could we have done something, you know, with an EMP to neutralize the virus? You know, so you can debate all of that, absolutely, you can, I won't deny it. But I think just because the experience I had when I went to see it, and obviously the callbacks to On Her Majesty's Secret Service and the connection there, that was very, very, very welcome. And a great action in this one as well. That whole set piece at the end, which is done as a wanna, when Bond's fighting his way up to the control room, that goes up there for me with the fight from GoldenEye. You know, in terms of the greatest action set pieces in Bond, like, because obviously the game's been changed in action films now. You know, from the John Wicks and the Raid movies and all that stuff. We've had a new breed of action, and for the first time, genuinely, I felt that we were offered something in this stairwell fight, we'll call it a stairwell fight for lack of a better term, that really met the heights of the sort of action that's being put out, you know, from 87 North and obviously the guys who worked on the Raid movies. Genuinely phenomenal sequence. But yeah, I really like No Time, and obviously the whole set piece with Daniel Craig and Anna de Armas. That's again probably for a lot of people it is the best part of the film, and I think it certainly deserves to be mentioned in the conversation. It's that whole Cuba sequence is amazing, and again, it's almost as though we go into a totally different movie for about quarter of an hour. It just the whole vibe of everything's different, and you know, it's great. It really is. But I really have a lot of love for No Time to Die, and I genuinely feel that it is my favourite Daniel Craig one. If I was to pick a Craig one, that would be the one. So again, that's just a nice little trot through the whole 60 years of Bond. Very whistle stop tour, but yeah, just notable mentions. And again, please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Again, this has just been totally unscripted, you know, just totally in the spur of the moment, you know. And I suppose as well, you talking briefly about the music, we touched on it earlier with obviously John Barry's wonderful compositions over the years, obviously the fact that On Her Majesty's Secret Service did, does one of the most wonderful music scores. I really think, if ever there was a Bond score that could have won the Oscar, I feel that the On Her Majesty's Secret Service score, that's it right there. And also, the wonderful scores. I love the score for Octopussy, and obviously Rita Coolidge is all the time in All Time High. You know, that song, All Time High, I love the song itself, but also the way it's utilised throughout the movie as an orchestral version. It's a wonderful love theme. But yeah, and also just obviously having people who've come and gone and done guest spots over the years. Obviously having Michael Kamen guest spot on License to Kill. Another favourite for me is Bill Conti on For Your Eyes Only. Obviously, I love Sheena Easton's song as well. But Bill Conti's music score, man. Oh, I think that is my favourite Bond score because it's total disco, man. Everyone talks about The Spy Who Loved Me, Bond 77 being disco, but Bill Conti's like, you know what, I'm going to carry this on. It's 81, so we're still in that hangover period from the 70s, so yeah, let's just go disco with this, man. And it's an absolute joy. But again, that wraps this up, so many wonderful memories over the years, and obviously we all have our favourites when some people love Sean, some people love Roger, obviously George Lazenby's got a lot of appreciation as the years have gone on. Obviously Tim Dalton, Pierce, and obviously now Daniel Craig. But isn't it wonderful that we have, there's something for everyone, there really is. What I will always maintain, though, I don't think, obviously, more actors are going to play Bond, and I'm sure they'll do an amazing job. But one thing I will say, as an ambassador for the Bond brand and someone who's connected with the fans over the years and the audiences, I don't think we're going to ever get anyone better than Rog. What Rog did as an ambassador over the years, he always had time for the fans, and it didn't matter how many years went by, he would always talk about Bond. He'd be more than happy to engage with people, and answer questions and share his memories and experiences. Obviously, he wrote so many wonderful books. I was lucky enough to be gifted My Word Is My Bond. I got that one year for Christmas. It's a wonderful book. But yeah, Roger is very, very special. And obviously, I think of all the actors, he had the closest relationship with Cubby Broccoli. So obviously, you talk about the Bond family. Obviously, Roger has a very, very special place in the Bond family, and deservedly so, That wraps this up. Thank you for listening to me ramble, and again, happy 60th anniversary to Bond. It's something very, very special. And again, please enjoy celebrating the day however you plan to celebrate it. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.